see those, was it 6 up front, joining our church today?
7.
Huh?
7.
7.
Somebody was missing.
And there was one, Michelle wasn't here, but she also transferred her membership.
Okay, so that is just a wonderful thing. And then also the fact that we had another great sermon today about how Jesus paid our debt. And we're debt-free. And I know Kathy and I know a lot about being debt-free because after farming like we did, being so many dollars in debt, and I finally felt God telling me, he said, you don't have to farm. And so, and ever since then, I made that decision. I know it didn't help go well with some of my children, but we've been able to live debt-free now for quite a while, and the plan to finish the game debt-free, and I'm just thankful for that. So, where I'm going to go with tonight's lesson, I'm going to go into Proverbs because I love Proverbs, and the reason I love Proverbs is just it's full of wisdom. And something I learned right off the bat about Proverbs, and of course what I'm going to focus on is Proverbs 18:17, because I read a proverb every day, so every month I read through the Proverbs and start over. So I read the Proverbs 12 times a year through the whole book because it's just full of wisdom and it's full of encouragement to me to do so. And so that's what I do. So, but for some reason, God really stopped me on verse 17 of chapter 18 when I read that. And so we used to go to a church where this lawyer friend of ours used to always talk about, and I think I put the question there about, does your life show enough evidence to convict you of being saved by Jesus under cross-examination or a trial of your peers? And he was always making a challenge to us that does your life reflect that? And so that's kind of what this verse 17 is about. It's about sometimes we think we got it all made, we're just sailing along, but are we really truly living? Do we really live it out loud for Jesus? And so that's why I'm sidestepping, because it just seemed like God wanted me to talk about that verse 17 and teach on it. So I'm going to teach on that whole chapter of 18 anyway. We're going to go all through that. And as you read there, I give you several verses in the Bible about the King James Version, but the one I'm using, because this is a New Living King James Version, talks about the first one to plead his cause seems right. So mainly it's talking about when we think we got it all figured out. Then somebody comes along until his neighbor comes and examines him. Well, some of these other versions that I give you here, like the New Living Translation says, the first to speak in court sounds right until cross-examination begins. So those just kept speaking to me. Does my life, when somebody else is examining my life, am I living out? So first of all, what do you think of that question I put out there? Does your life show enough evidence to convict you of being saved by Jesus under cross-examination or trial? What do you think of that kind of a question?
I would think that I represent his love and his mercy and his grace in my acts. Maybe not all the time.
Okay.
Because I do lose my temper at times.
Okay.
Well, I think Jesus did too.
I think we all stub our toe every once in a while.
Yeah.
So I think that's, that's why Jesus got crucified, because he was perfect, but we're not perfect.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to work on it. One of the other things about this, as I learned and did some more study into this lesson, when you look at, before I get back to this 18, I think something that struck me is, and I know there's people that know the answer to this already, but one of the things that really struck me is when you look at chapter 3, and when you look at chapter 3, the one, happy is the man who finds wisdom. Happy is the man who finds wisdom, the man who gains understanding, for her proceeds are better than profits of silver. So it's talking about wisdom as her, and it keeps talking about keeps calling wisdom she in this verse. It keeps referring to wisdom as she. Okay, I did not know this, and I'm sure that there was other people that know this answer. But the reason the word she is always used in Proverbs as for wisdom, that she, wisdom, is because it's a Hebrew word called klokma. Does that sound right? Is that good for you?
Take your word for it.
Well, it's spelled Klokmoth, and that's the Hebrew word for feminine. And because of that word, that's where they got translated to she or her. You'll see that all the time, because I could never understand why always Proverbs kept talking about she. So that's a Hebrew word. I don't normally know these things, but I went in depth to find out because it was really bugging me why I kept using she in there. And but when you look at that chapter 3, the Lord by wisdom, that's why I like God himself by wisdom formed the earth. By understanding he established the heavens. By his knowledge the depths were broken up and clouds dropped down the dew.
Can you spell that word again?
I don't care on that.
Sorry.
It's C-H-O. Let me get back to it. C-H-O-K-M-O-T-H. C-H-O-K-M-O-T-H. You'll probably never use that from day to day, but that's the Hebrew word for feminine, which I struggle with. Kathy Esther helped me remember the word feminine. So, going back to the original thought I had on this verse 17, it convicted me to teach on this chapter, but it also, what's some other things that happen in a courtroom? What usually happens in a courtroom? Or another word?
You get judged innocent or guilty.
Okay, that's some. What do people do on the witness stand? Testimony. Well, it just so happened when Pastor this year's church board meeting gave us a devotional book from Chick Shaver, which I read every day. And it just so happened today, I've asked my lovely assistant Kathleen to read today's devotional to you because it's pretty good and it will kind of go along with this lesson, I hope. So Kathleen, would you please read my devotion for today?
Add your testimony. If I testify about myself, my testimony is not true. There is another who testifies in my favor, and I know that his testimony about me is true. John 5:31 and 32. Gentlemen, the Gospels were written by men who thought Jesus was the Messiah. We must regard it as so much propaganda. This was my college Bible professor's opening statement. His words sent a chill through my recently converted soul. What a negative testimony. Far truer and more moving were the words I had heard a few weeks earlier from the man who led me to Christ. Chick, I'm different than I used to be because I found the Lord. To testify is to tell another what Jesus has done for you. To testify is to affirm all that Jesus really is. In dealing with the hostile people of his day, Jesus said that if he only testified to who he really was, that would not be good enough. He would not be accepted. Jesus then began to list the other people and facts who testified to his true identity. Would it be possible to sway his antagonists? He first mentions John the Baptist, who was well regarded as a prophet in that day. You have sent to John, and he has testified to the truth. Not that I accept human testimony, but I mention it that you may be saved. John 5:33 and 34. Second, he cited the works, signs, and miracles he performed as valid evidence. For the works that the Father has given me to finish, the very works that I'm doing, testify that the Father has sent me. 5:36. Third, the Father himself testified to Christ's message, and the Father who sent me has he himself testified concerning me. 5:37. Finally, there is a scriptural evidence. These were the very scriptures that testify about me. 5:39. Jesus presented 4 strong, respected testimonies as though he were in a court of law. And how did his audience respond to this evidence? Jesus said of them, I have come in my Father's name, and you do not accept me. 5:43. How sad. Then another witness emerged. The man who had been healed spoke up to Jesus' opponents. John 5:15 reports, the man went away and told the Jewish leaders that it was Jesus who had made him well. How beautiful it is to listen to the people like Jolene. On a September 30th, she accepted Christ and said, it was incredible. I was instantly different. Recounting the moment in which God brought down his last will of resistance, Mike said, I felt I just had to get away from people that night, and all alone at 11 p.m. I cried out and asked Christ into my heart. Later he said, God has helped me incredibly. Shiraz was depressed on April 14th because of income taxes. But when some Christian friends told her that Christ was knocking at the door of her heart, she prayed and opened the door. She began to rejoice and said, oh, I have such peace. I have such peace. She ran across the room and hugged her husband, exclaiming, Albert, what do we do next? Let's answer for her. Go tell someone. Would you like to join the testifiers?
I continue to get amazed at what God's doing here. When we looked at that group of people across the sanctuary today that would join our church, was one thing. But something I got to see this morning in Sunday school was even better, that goes along with that story right there. We got to hear a young man give testimony about his drug addiction, and it was a tremendous testimony, and that was Casey, because watching Casey get his life turned around, not only turned his life around, turned his wife's life around. His children we got 2 of them going to be baptized pretty soon. So 2 of his children are getting ready to be baptized. But Casey has been a huge influence on me, a huge influence on Bubby, a huge influence on Mark. He's made a great move. And something else happened today also in his testimony. Somebody was sitting by him that really needed to hear his testimony. And I was so glad to see that she was here and hear his testimony, because his testimony was so powerful, so true, so real, and it was just beautiful to see Jesus Christ working in the life of a person that was changed, he'd been through a lot, and none of us can really even understand. I mean, I did some nothing like Casey's done, but I mean, I'm not proud of some of the things I've done in my past, but Casey is a true testimony of what Jesus Christ can do in the life of a person who's been lost.
He said that here when you and I were working on the border. He was in tears and was telling us a lot of different stories that had happened to him,
Right.
especially when he was in jail.
Yes.
So he said that he went to the Lord and asked forgiveness, and he knew immediately that he was going to change, and he did change.
And he is changing. Yeah, but he's got to stay. I mean, even though because Satan works hard behind the scenes all the time.
Right.
But to go along with this lesson, with that devotion, that was the most wonderful testimony I've heard for a long time this morning. So now I want to move into Proverbs 18 and verse. I want my other lovely assistant to read chapter 18 to me. Now, and it's chapter 18 in Proverbs, and you've got it. And anyway, so go ahead and read chapter 18 for me.
Right. A man who isolates himself seeks his own desire. He rages against all wise judgment. A fool has no delight in understanding, but in expressing his own heart. When the wicked comes, contempt comes also, and with dishonor comes reproach. The words of a man's mouth are deep waters. The wellspring of wisdom is a flowing brook. It is not good to show partiality to the wicked, or to overthrow the righteous in judgment. A fool's lips enter into contention, and his mouth calls for blows. A fool's mouth is his destruction, and his lips are the snare of his soul. The words of a talebearer are like tasty trifles, and they go down into the inmost body. He who is slothful in his work is a brother to him who is a great destroyer. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run to it and are safe. The rich man's wealth is his strong city, and like a high wall in his own esteem. Before destruction, the heart of a man is haughty, and before honor is humility. He who answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame to him. I do that once in a while. The spirit of a man will sustain him in sickness, but who can bear a broken spirit? The heart of the prudent acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. A man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men. The first one to plead his case seems right, until the neighbor comes and examines him. Casting lots causes contentions to cease and keep the mighty apart. A brother offended is harder to win than a strong city, and contenders are like the bars of a castle. A man's stomach shall be satisfied through the fruit of his mouth. From the produce of his lips he shall be fulfilled. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. He who finds a wife finds a good thing, and obtains favor from the Lord. The poor man uses entreaties, but the rich answers roughly. A man who has friends must himself be friendly, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother.
Thank you. And that last part's pretty awesome. So I'm backing up just a little bit before I'm going to start in here, and we're going to start going through 18. But happy is the man who finds wisdom, and the man who gains understanding. For her, and here it goes into those feminine pronouns. For her, proceeds are better than the profits of silver, and her gain than fine gold. She is more precious than rubies, and all the things you may desire cannot compare. With her length of days is in her right hand, in her left hand riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who take hold of her. And happy are all who retain her. And then right after that, it goes into that one I read you about the Lord. The Lord by wisdom founded the earth. But I kind of read that mainly because happy is the man who finds wisdom, but also you heard those pronouns that she was being used. So we're going to start with verse 1 and talk. Or what I'm going to do is just kind of go through each verse and we'll just talk about them. So Proverbs 18:1 said, a man who isolates himself seeks his own desires. He rages against all wise judgment. What do you think he's saying there? What do you think he's saying there? A man who isolates himself seeks his own desires. He rages against all wise judgment.
If we don't ever listen to anybody else's thoughts and wisdom but our own, we can convince ourselves of some stuff that's really not true. You know, if you never bounce your ideas off anybody, you might go down the wrong path and not even realize it. So isolate themselves that way.
I mean, if you isolate yourself, it's hard to gain new knowledge, new wisdom, per se. And it said a man who isolates himself seeks his own desire. So that's another reason for that. He uses passages to teach the necessity of not separating from the community. So it's important for us to be part of the community. That's why it's so important for us as a body of believers together to hold one another up. And we are really doing that great because we hold ourselves up in prayer. There's so many great things happening right now. Any other things on that verse that speaks to you? Okay, Proverbs 18:2. A fool has no delight in understanding, but in expressing his own heart. A fool has no delight in understanding, but in expressing his own heart. Any thoughts on that one? There's no, I'm not grading because I'm probably the worst student in the room, okay? So,
There's a lot of people that like the sound of their own voice.
Yeah.
that's exactly right. Sometimes they don't want to listen to the thing. So it said, but expressing his own heart, what delights the fool is expressing his own heart. It shows how clever he is rather than to learn. So that's kind of what that verse talks about. Let me get my papers apart.
It could also show that he likes to give his own opinion and not take anybody else's.
Yeah. Closed mind. And so verse 3 said, when the wicked comes, contempt comes also, and with dishonor comes reproach. What do you think he's talking about there? When the wicked comes, contempt comes also. The wicked bring contempt with them, and the proud, superior attitude that thinks itself better than others. So that's kind of what he's talking about. Any other comments on that one that you want to add to that? With dishonor comes reproach. The wicked bring its insults, reproach, upon those that consider dishonorable. Verse 4 said, the words of a man's mouth are deep. Well, I love this one scripture right here because of the beauty of the poetry of this one. The words of a man's mouth are deep waters. The wellspring of wisdom is a flowing brook. What do you think he's saying there? The words of a man's mouth are deep waters. A wellspring of wisdom is a flowing brook. Have you ever seen a wellspring, a spring? What's a wellspring look like?
Pure.
Pure. And it just keeps coming up.
Yeah.
It keeps coming up and it keeps feeding. And so the words of man's words just flow, just come up and flow like a spring. And they're worth understanding and following. So the idea is that we reveal the depths of our heart by the words of our mouth. That's what he's talking about. We reveal the depths of our heart by the words of our mouth. Okay, verse 5. It is not good to show partiality to the wicked, or to overthrow the righteous in judgment. What do you think about that one? What do you read there or hear there? I think we're seeing a lot of that now. We see a lot of it now. And can you think of an example you might see this now, right now, today? And I'm thinking of government.
There are a lot of examples in civic life where the law-abiding are put behind in preference to the lawbreakers with all sorts of reasons why and excuses. I know California right now has a law that it's not enacted, it's working its way through. And they're not calling it this, but it's been called the Nick Shirley Act because the law is to limit people like this internet reporter. He's an independent news guy. He exposed the fraud in Minnesota. So this law is to keep people like him from exposing fraud. So, and I'm not sure how you paint that in a good way, that like we're the government protecting itself from someone pointing out that there's wrongdoing going on, but that is what that verse is, that's kind of getting at that verse.
We must not, in judicial cases, pay any attention to the man's riches. That's the point he's trying to make, and not in what you're talking about, because you're on the influence of friends and offices, etc. but judge the case according to its own merits. I mean, if you break the law, you break the law. It doesn't make any difference how much money you have, how much influence you have. But that's what he's talking about. When one is partial to the wicked, the rights of God are despised, and the claims of his justice are thrown away. So that's kind of what we've been seeing a lot here lately, a lot more than normal. All right, verse 6. A fool's lips enter into contention, and his mouth calls for blows. Contention, same thing as for disagreement. A fool's mouth. Oops. A fool's lips enter into contention, and his mouth calls for blows. Any thoughts on that one? As fools' lips enter into contention, it is in the nature of the fool to argue. Their words often bring them into contention. His mouth calls for blows. The contention words of the fool invite a punishment, and sometimes this punishment will be physical correction, the blows of the rod of correction. Any other? I'm going to move on. Verse 7. A fool's mouth is his destruction, and his lips are the snare of his soul. Any thoughts on that one?
People say stupid things.
People say stupid things. They get tripped.
I never do.
That's pretty easy. That's pretty easy. His lips are the snare of his soul. So he stumbles over his own mouth. Okay, verse 8. The words of a talebearer are like tasty trifles, and they go down into the inmost body. Another word for talebearer is gossip, secrets and rumors.
So you really just don't believe everything you hear.
No?
Yeah.
I know I've told you, and I've told you again, so you're going to hear the Bartles and James story again. But it used to be back in the 70s, there was these two guys that were supposed to be cattle farmers in California. And they were Boone's Farm, I think it was Boone Farm wine coolers. They were promoters of that wine cooler. And man, they had me convinced, not that I partook of the Boone's Farm, which I probably did, but they had me convinced that they were these cattle farmers. They were just good old Joes. We'll come find out they were actors like anybody. They were hired actors. And that's, today and this is kind of going with this, but today I have this thing on my phone that I get this poll that polls every day. And today's question was, are you more afraid of AI or nuclear weapons? And that was the poll. I'll just poll you. What do you think of AI versus build up of nuclear weapons?
They're both destructive.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you hit on a good point because it was almost even. I mean, I voted against AI because the concern I have with AI is just like my belief in Bartles and James back in the 70s. Well, this AI thing's even more.
Oh, yeah.
More convincing than anything to find out, this guy really isn't the guy. I mean, when they can take dead people and have them come back and start talking.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, if you've been to the Lincoln Museum and seen the holograms that they have there, that is unbelievable. It's just like he's just standing, he just walks out and starts talking to you. It's been a long time since I've seen that, but anyway. So the fool's mouth is his destruction, and his lips are the snare of the soul. And the words of a talebearer, that's where I was at, the words of a talebearer are like tasty trifles. And the thing about in using the word gossip, a lot of people feed on gossip. A lot of people want to tell gossip. And now we're starting to see deals where, well, maybe part of the truth is there, but most of the big story is not there. But there's some people that just want to hear that one little morsel. It might have been something a person did back when they didn't know Jesus.
Social media is full of it. You don't believe everything you see or hear on social media that you read.
I think, I don't know about you, but the news today, we've just kind of got to the point, we can't even watch the weather anymore. It makes you sick that you can't even watch the weather because there's like a 0.2% chance of tornadoes. But just to make it sound like it's all sensationalized, they use that kind of wording now and try to make it all sensationalized, and it's just getting out of hand. And
That show Hee Haw.
Yeah.
Yes.
It said, I don't repeat gospel, so listen close the first time.
Okay. All right, verse 9. He who is slothful in his work is a brother to him who is a great destroyer. What do you think of that statement? He who is slothful in his work is a brother to him who is a great destroyer.
They don't take no pride in their work.
Yeah. Lazy.
Yeah.
And our government has done a great job of creating a lot of slothful people. And I'm not trying to I don't want to get political, but this is making, I told my grandkids this all started in the 60s. The more they tax, and I'm talking about both sides, I'm not singling anybody out on this one because it's all political. But back in the 60s, because of wanting more, it forced women to have to go into the workforce. It used to be the dad could get a good job, he could take care of his family, feed his family, and things were good. But then the more the government needed, the more it caused people to have to go to work. And so now we've started this whole thing now, and what we've seen happen from this is the breakdown of the family. And I'll say it right now, driving this bus, it breaks my heart to see some of what I'm seeing. And it's not about, it's just about the situation I'm seeing there. But God expects us to work. God never intended us for not to work. And
But we can retire, right?
What?
But we can retire, right?
You can retire, but you got to work. And that's what I told Termite the other day, because Termite was bugging me about something. And so I thought, because he's sitting there, he snuck off while Mary was doing something, working and doing what she wanted to do. He got his pickup and went to Max's ball game. And so he told me, he said, well, while the woman wasn't watching, I took off and went to the ball game. So he's sitting out in the outfield, and I said, yeah, you're out there shagging home runs for Max. And I forgot where I was going with that.
Back in the day, Tom, when I was growing up, you spent Thanksgiving and Christmas at home. Nothing was open. Nobody worked.
Nobody worked.
Your society and your system has taken that away. They started forcing people to work on the holidays, these companies that are greedy, and they took that away.
Right.
And it's getting worse every year.
It's getting worse everywhere.
Every place is open.
And I guess the problem I'm seeing now is I see a lot of things on incomes of some of these larger people. There's a lot of people that aren't making it, but yet these people are. It used to be a millionaire was a big deal.
That was family time, where you spent time with your family and enjoyed that day. You don't see that anymore.
But then if we do get together as family, we got phones in front of us.
Yep.
That's the other issue that's going on. And anyway, I'm getting too judgmental, so I'm sorry. But you're supposed to work. And we've created a system that does not reward work. It pays people not to work. It actually pays them not to work. And that's not what God intended. He wants us to be productive and whatnot. Okay, verse 10. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run to it and are safe. What do you think of that statement? This is the only place in Proverbs where the name of the Lord is found and signifies the attributes of God. Here, the power to protect us, and then you can look it up in Exodus. So we know he's a strong tower. We know that he's a place we can run for a refuge. The Lord, you are the God of love. So I find refuge in your love. Lord, you are the God of mercy. So I find refuge in your mercy. Lord, you are the God of strength. So I find refuge in your strength. Lord, you are the God of righteousness. So I find refuge in your righteousness. That's just, all creatures run to their refuge when hunted. Run therefore to God. I remember back years ago, pheasant hunting was a big deal. And we had one neighbor that was kind of a ecologist type person. And if you wanted to find, I mean, he didn't believe in hunting. He didn't do any hunting. So it was almost like God tells these pheasants, go to that guy's house. So all the pheasants would go to that guy's house when hunting season came in. It's just like automatic, you remember Don Harris.
Oh,
Yeah, they all used to go to his house. If you wanted to find a pheasant, they were there, but you couldn't hunt them because he didn't want you hunting his pheasant. So it was always kind of funny how they have that instinct. Even deer have an instinct, it seems like, to go hide.
I think that that's literally true sometimes, because you hear stories. People will tell a story about how they were being robbed or someone kidnapped them or whatever, and they just started praying and calling on God's name out loud, and the people are like, whoa, and they leave them. Sometimes it can be a literal. I think it'd always be great to do if that happened to you. I don't know if God would always step in right then and save you, but it scares the bad guy to hear you talking to God.
Yeah. Okay, so verse 11 says, the rich man's wealth is his strong city, and like a high wall in his own esteem. So what do you think of that one? I mean, sometimes the rich think that they've got it. They don't need anything else. They don't need God. They don't need any of us. They're just fine with their money.
And then they usually lose it all.
Right.
And their life.
I just made a note here I put, but the danger of wealth is precisely that. It gives its possessor the illusion of greatest security. So when you bank on wealth, is it always there? No. You can lose it as quick as you gained it.
God can bring it down anytime he desires.
And there again, that's one of my issues, is what we've done with gambling. And what we've done with gambling in society. And usually a lot of people that, anyway, that's one of my other issues. It's just sad to see you can't go anywhere without it right now, especially in this state. Okay, verse 12. Before destruction, the heart of man is haughty, and before honor is humility. What do you think of that one? Before destruction, the heart of a man is haughty. It's talking about being humble.
Isn't that pride goes before a fall?
Yes, pride goes before a fall. That's another verse you can find.
Humility comes before honor.
Yep. So Proverbs 13 will also kind of fit with that Proverbs 17 that I talked about. He who answers a matter before he hears it is folly and shames to him. And we'll talk about that when we get to verse 17. But he who answers a matter before he hears it is folly and shame. What's another or definition of folly? What was it? Okay. So 14 says, the spirit of a man will sustain him in sickness, but who can bear a broken spirit? What do you think of that one?
I like that.
Is that God calling? The spirit of a man will sustain him in sickness, but who can bear a broken spirit? Any thoughts on that one? Who can bear a broken spirit? When the spirit is broken, instead of giving life, it proves to be something few people can bear. So a lot of times, and I mean, we've seen a lot of Christians get broken. Just issues in the family that just broke them, and they didn't get the answer that they were looking for. But God still loves them, and he's still looking out for them. Verse 15, the heart of the prudent acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. So, and when he's talking about being prudent, the wise is cautious, and they're practical, and they are careful planners. That's what that proverb's talking about. The heart of the prudent acquires knowledge. Knowledge is the beginning of all instruction, and the knowledge of God, that's one of the great things. I'll tell you, today I started reading out in the book of Chronicles, the first 2 chapters, and that's quite a piece of work. I don't know, the genealogy is amazing, and I'm trying to get through this thing, but boy, that one, I'm about to get through. I thought I was through all the rough ones, but I didn't realize how Chronicles was a tough one.
That's about 7 chapters of dedication to get through that.
Wow. Okay. Verse 16, a man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men. A man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men. What do you think that was saying?
About bribes?
I think it's kind of what it's talking about. This Jacob, Genesis 43:11 said, he knew well that therefore he knew that how bad his sons were that took present for the governor of the land, though it was but every good thing a little so I don't know what I'm not reading that right. But a man's gift makes room for him. A provision or proverb spoke of present in its sense of broad, but a different word is used here. A proverb is a simple recognition of fact and generosity and politeness. It opens many doors. So it can go both ways. Showing somebody something good, doing a good favor for somebody is one way to open that door. Now this is the one that got me started on going this route here. Proverbs 17. The first one to plead his cause seems right. So, I guess some of the thought process, Kathy and I just got done watching the practice, the whole 8 seasons of the practice. Now, there's some things in the practice that are probably not really that great, but it's on TV, so it can't get too out of control. Yeah. But, yeah, I guess we watched that as one side tells its story, and then the defense attorneys come in and start coming after you. Well, Satan is kind of that defense attorney, always trying to turn it on, trying to get people acquitted. And he kind of wants to get you acquitted of being a Jesus follower. So the first one to plead his cause seems right until his neighbor comes and examines him. Like I said, I give you several versions there of different scriptures and how they wrote that, but mainly under the cross-examination, and we will stand in cross-examination eventually. Any thoughts on that scripture? Any thoughts come to your mind on that scripture?
It's not the exact application, but I know recently I was counseling someone that was very concerned because someone had put a story about them on Facebook. And the first time this person saw this accusation about them, a bunch of people had already seen it. And they were very concerned, very upset, and that's going to be a big thing. And, there's younger people, younger than any of us except Jeannie, have a different sort of reality where fear that somebody's gonna do that, and the first thing that's there seems right, and so like then you're always chasing it and trying to undo it, and so I think that, you know, in a way, that's kind of where a lot of people would read that, and that's where their mind might go.
There's another proverb that says, the least words said are the best words said. And I love that one, because actually another attorney that I worked with when I was on school board in Edinburgh, that's what he taught me. Best thing is don't say anything. And I guess that's why I kind of got to, and what you just saw, that's why I kind of stay off Facebook. Because once some words get out there, you just can't take them back.
And sometimes you think it's the most logical thing in the world. You put it down there, and it still doesn't come across right. So like,
I love all you.
Yeah.
I love you all so much, but I do know that we all have different opinions in this room.
Yes.
And I don't want to jeopardize my friendship with any of you. And but I mean, I'm not going to compromise Jesus Christ. But I love you enough that I don't want to jeopardize my friendship with you. And so, anyway, 18. Casting lots causes contentions to cease and keeps the mighty apart. And if you remember, casting lots back in those days was a big deal. I mean, they cast lots for Jesus' clothing and when he was going to be crucified. They cast lots whether they're going to go to war. They cast lots. So more or less they're gambling all the time, it seemed like. 19, I'm just kind of speeding up here. The brother offended is harder to win than a strong city. And contentious are like the bars of a castle. Contentious are like bars of a castle. I personally have one of these deals with this. And it was something I said. That's why I think it sticks with me. Years ago, a close friend of mine that he stood up with me in our wedding. I made a statement to him, and I thought I was being funny. And it cost me a friendship that I had all through high school with him. And even now, I can't get it repaired. I've tried to reach out and repair it, but I've not been able to repair it. And I mean, we've been cordial to one another, but the friendship we had was a good one back in the day. And so that's one that really hits hard to me, is being careful of what we say. And that's it. So, okay, verse 20. A man's stomach shall be satisfied from the fruit of his mouth. From the produce of his lips he shall be filled. So, again, it's what you say. Verse 21. I'm going to speed through these. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. So, again, he's talking about, the tongue is a fire. We've got to watch what we say. And then the last one is, verse 22. He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. And I know that there's quite a few in here that must have found a good one. And so I'll leave that one for argument for anybody else. Any other questions on this Proverb 18? Oh, I got one more, 23, sorry. The poor man uses entreaties, but the rich answers roughly. So the poor man uses good words, more or less, and the rich man answers roughly. The poor man uses those words. It is sadly true that often when a person is poor in money or influence, all they can do is beg for favor and justice. The rich answers roughly. The rich man or woman can speak boldly and even rudely. Sometimes the rich can think they're pretty tough. Verse 14. A man who has friends must himself be friendly, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And that's why what?
That's the best.
Yeah. So that's one we'll end up on. Any thoughts about that? Like I said, that one verse kind of got me thinking about my witness and does our lives reflect what we're living out loud? Any other comments before I'm going to pray? Okay, Father God, we love you so much, and we thank you for this beautiful day you created for us, especially for our family of believers as we came together today, and your words, the word was spoken, you were praised, and we're grateful for the opportunity to do so. And so, Father, we just pray your blessing upon each one here, each one of us here this morning, those that weren't able to be here. Just continue to have your way here the way you've been going. Help us to be attentive to what you're calling us to do. Give us the eyes to see the one you want us to lead to you. And we ask this all in Jesus' name. Amen. Have a good week.
You too.